Chair, we have Andrew Scheer is taking on the housing minister. And the Liberals made a big announcement the other day, which really didn't get any traction for two reasons, for multiple reasons. First of all, it's $20 billion, and it's only going to help them build more luxury apartments because it's just backing up loans, and it has no restrictions on where the money goes. And everyone is fully aware that there's more profit to be made in luxury apartments at this moment in time than there is doing it to the working class. So that's where it's going to go. So it's just a nothing burger. So Andrew Scheer and Jenny Kwan, actually, they take out they do some pretty pointed questions. Though, honestly, I don't see a plan on any of their parts, to be honest. Check this out.
With it is to put a ban on that erosion to financialized landlords, to profiteering landlords from purchasing and sweeping up the low-cost apartments in our communities and then jacking up the rent, rental evicting people, demo evicting people. That's another option. As Steve Pomeroy has indicated, for every one unit is built in terms of affordable housing, you lose 15. So you need to build and you need to stop the erosion. So that's what the NDP is calling for. The other thing that I want to raise with the minister is this.
Ms. Kwan, your time's up. So if you could quickly phrase your question.
All right. I'll be very quick. On the housing benefit, in 2022 budget, the government made the NDP forced the government to deliver a one-time $500 housing benefit to help low-income Canadians. And with the rollout, the Liberals acted unilaterally to change the eligibility criteria, leaving out the most vulnerable and lowest income people. So how did the Liberal government reach this decision to limit the benefit? And what is the minister's going to do to fix it?
This response.
Thank you very much for the question. This is a question that's been raised at this table before, and there was no change in the definition of the benefit. I think there was some misunderstanding about how that it was communicated, but it was not our intention to cut out certain segments of the population. But we did have to draw some lines in the sand in terms of determining who was eligible. So I think this is we're very happy to provide the definitions that were used and have further discussions on this based on that submission.
Thank you. Now,
the bureaucracy is just cutting out the smaller players. 7 years or even 3 years for a permit just cuts out the guy that's trying to make, a monthly whatever annual gains. But if you got to wait 12 years, you're fine. Here you go. Here's Scheer.
Here's Scheer for 5
Unbelievable.
minutes. Mr. Scheer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. One of your government's main signature pieces to address the housing crisis that you now acknowledge that has certainly pushed the dream of home ownership out of the reach of so many Canadians over the last 8 years was the Housing Accelerator Fund. This program was announced 2 years ago with $4 billion of taxpayers' money behind it. So in that time, can you tell the committee how many homes have been completed thanks to the Housing Accelerator Fund? Just the number, please.
Look, I know the line of questioning is designed to try to set a trap because you and I both know that the fund is now rolling out with investments that's changing the way cities build homes. It was announced as part of the 2021 campaign, budgeted last year, and it's now changing the way, but it's only now starting to have an impact.
Okay, so this is a 2-year-old announcement. It's been 2 years.
It was a 2-year-old campaign commitment. It was implemented in last year's budget.
You've had 2 years.
It started rolling out 2 weeks ago.
If you know the line of questioning, then you should know the answer. So how many homes have been completed?
I think it's. I reject entirely the false pretense that underlies your question because this is going to fundamentally change the way cities build homes. It's not. I'm not to be tricked here.
This is not a trick. It's not a trick question to ask how many results have come out of a government program. In fact, in your opening comments, you said that, quote, we can't just throw ideas against the wall. And then you went on to say you have to measure results and, quote, maximize output. This is a 2-year-old announcement, $4 billion of taxpayers' money. If just tell us the answer, like if it is warmer,
the trick
colder,
that you're trying to play here.
It's not a trick. It's not a trick.
It's cute that you're playing this game.
How can asking for a number?
Mr. Chair, do I have an opportunity to answer the question?
It's a very simple question.
Mr. Scheer's time.
Fine.
He hasn't answered it. I'd like to know the number. A 2-year-old announcement, $4 billion of
The
taxpayers'
Housing
money.
Accelerator
How many completions?
Fund. The Housing
How many
Accelerator
completions?
Fund doesn't actually directly build homes. It changes the way cities build homes, and then builders in those cities build homes. Right now, we expect this is going to have an impact of thousands of new homes for Canadians, but having only started rolling out the fund 2 weeks ago, it's only now starting to change those ways. It's going to play out over the next 2 years.
We're going to measure this from when the government announced it. That's 2 years ago, $4 billion. Just tell us the number.
So 2 years ago, for the clarity of people who might be watching at home, the way that policies are implemented, after you campaign on it, you budget for them, and then you implement them after the fact. This is a 2-week-old program in terms of us rolling it out.
Canadians who have been forced out of their homes and now living in their cars, students who have to live in tents, families who now have to share one-bedroom apartments with other families, they don't have time, Minister. You announced this program 2 years ago. The question was very simple. How many homes have been completed with this $4 billion program? Just tell us the number.
Encourage my colleague to drop the feigned outrage. He had almost a decade in government when he did absolutely nothing to build more homes in this country.
Well, isn't it tiring, this argument the Liberals have? Well, when you were in power, when the Conservatives were in power, I could buy a home in my hometown for like $15,000. Fixer upper. Now that same home is $500,000. So I didn't need the government to step in when there was enough housing, but they brought in record immigration, and at the same time, when it's up to 10 years to get a permit to build a home, here it goes on the argument.
Just tell us the number.
Encourage my colleague to drop the feigned outrage. He had almost a decade in government when he did absolutely nothing to build more homes in this country.
Let's
we have
talk
done
about
more in the past 2 weeks than his government has done in 10 years in government. And if he wants to be cute with the way he answers questions for a Facebook clip, go right ahead. I'm going to focus on building homes for Canadians.
Wow. If the minister thinks it's cute to ask questions on behalf of desperate Canadians who don't know how they're going to make their next mortgage payment or their next rent payment, or 35-year-olds who have moved back into their parents' basement, if he thinks that's cute, he can look Canadians in the eye and tell them that. This was a very simple question, and you have refused to answer because the answer is, in fact, zero. And that's a complete failure. And if you want to talk about 8 years ago, let's talk about 8 years ago when housing costs were half of what they are now.
And
when
the
average mortgage payment
was
half of what it is now. The average rent payment was half of what it was now. Be happy to compare the housing record of 8 years ago then with today. Now, in Budget 2022, the Finance Minister promised that over the next 10 years, we will double the number of new homes we build. Since that time, have housing starts gone up or down?
It depends where you measure from or if you cherry pick data. But if we compare to the time that you were in government, housing construction is nearly twice what it would have been.
Minister, I'm not cherry picking data. I'm picking the date on which your colleague, the Minister of Finance, made that promise. Since that time, have housing prices gone up or down?
Housing prices?
Sorry, housing starts gone up or down. We can answer on prices too, but have housing starts gone up or down since the minister promised to double the number in the next 10 years?
Just before we get to your question, I don't think any member of this committee or any party in the House of Commons has a monopoly on caring about vulnerable people who have very real housing needs. One of the things I actually think is really
doing
healthy,
something.
I agree.
Something.
And I'm happy to talk about what I'm doing. But one of the things that I think is really important and actually very healthy in our democracy, and I credit all parties in the House, I think we're in agreement on what some of the problems are. Okay. But back to the Housing Accelerator Fund that you had pointed to, it has a very specific purpose. It is not throwing anything at the wall. It's designed to change the way that cities build homes, and it's having that desired impact today.
Chair.
Point of order, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Scheer.
Chair, point of order.
Your point of order.
It's a simple when witnesses, regardless of whether or not they're ministers, and I understand Mr. Scheer wants to make a political point here, but when witnesses are given questions, we should allow them the time to offer an answer. It's basic decorum to maintain order at committee.
On the same point?
Mr. Scheer?
There is a well-established convention that the length of time for the answer should be commensurate with the length of time for the question. And when the questions are simple yes or no,
You didn't
or
follow it.
up or down, or just the number, shouldn't take 3 or 4 minutes to answer that kind of question.
Thank you, Mr. Scheer.